Namaskaram. So we will be discussing in today's video about the Inner Engineering book. As I talked about it in the last video, that I started to read this book at the time when I was doing this meditations also. I would just sit idle with my eyes closed and just listen to sounds of Isha sounds. That's it. That was the only sadhana which I was doing, and I was reading this book. If you haven't seen the previous video, in that I am talking about my journey till Sadhguru. How did I find him? From that came this book. So talking about the book, this is the book which I read, and I'll keep this with me throughout my life, that's for sure. So it is a very simple, a very easy to understand book for all those who want to know the source of joy within themselves. Most of the people think that joy or happiness comes from external things. You need to go out and search in the world for it, but that's not the point. So it is called A Yogi's Guide to Joy. So the yogi is this him. He is the yogi and he is guiding us towards joy. It's a New York Times bestseller. So that's a selling point for people who just trust bestsellers. So it is one. So talking about it, there are two parts to the book. In part one, most of the things which are covered are just to make you aware about what offerings are there in yoga for a person and why should you make use of it. Why should you do yoga? And that is more of a convincing thing, convincing tone. All these things which you tried in your life, be it material wealth or pleasures or joys or relationships, everything. After all that, still if you are in a finding mode of happiness in the external situations, then it might not lead you anywhere in your life. The last word of this chapter is that, and now yoga. That means that now that you have realized that everything else in this material world doesn't seem to help you in your spiritual growth or to know what is the basis of your life, so now you turn to yoga. And the second part is totally based on different levels of lives which we are. It might be the physical body, the mental body, the energy body, the emotional body. The book talks about each of it in detail. To state some points of the part one starts with a brief introduction about Sadhguru. And for people who don't know much about him, this is the best way to start a book by him, because you must know that what this person is about, what he wants to offer, so that you can receive it in the best possible manner. It talks about a phrase, in is the only way out. So if you feel trapped in this whole situation, the life situation which you are in, and if you want to break free from that, then in, turning inwards is the only way out. There's no other way. This chapter also talks about love in detail, responsibility not in the terms in which the normal people understand it. This is a different perspective towards the word responsibility. That is really, really interesting, and that changes a lot of things. So I won't go into much detail in the part one because that is more of a convincing tone. I'll talk more about the part two, which is the real spirituality thing. So Sadhguru talks about the four wheels which drives our life. It's the physical body, the mental body, the energy body, and the emotions. So Sadhguru talks about all four. And if we want our vehicle to move forward, to go somewhere, to reach somewhere, then we need all the four wheels rolling, not just one or two wheels. He talks in details about the cycles of life, the sense organs and their effect on us, and the limitations of the sense organs. He talks about food in detail, because food is a really important thing when we consider spirituality also a part of our lives. He talks about masculine and feminine energies, which are the basis of the creation and which are also very much part of our system, our energy body. So he talks about that. He talks about breathing. He talks about pulse rates and the patterns, what intervals it should be, what are the different pulse rates and the breathing patterns which indicates different possibilities for a human being. Talking about the mind, he talks about the thoughts. What are thoughts and how are they created? He talks about different segments of mind. For most of the people, we just think that mind is this brain and the thoughts coming in, but that is not it. Sadhguru talks in detail about different parts of minds and how they work differently to make our lives going and to create what we are today. Then it comes to a very important point of awareness or consciousness. He talks in detail about what consciousness is and how can one reach awareness of his own self so that he can move forward in his spiritual journey. Talking about emotions, he talks about devotion and how devotion or bhakti yoga can take one to his ultimate, and how devotion in this culture, in Indian culture, has been a foundation for spiritual seekers towards the ultimate union. While talking about the energy body, he talks about karma, which is a very misunderstood part of the Indian ethos. Karma definitely means something different. Before reading this book, my concepts on karma were very different, and this book gave me a real inside view of what really karma is. Why should we even think of dissolving our karma? He talks about mechanics of lives. Talking about the energy body, he also talks about the anatomy of it and different nadis, chakras, how the energy body functions, and is that physical or is it non-physical? All these questions are answered in the book. Then Sadhguru throws light upon the topmost level which is considered in yoga, which is known as samadhi. What samadhi is and how can one attain to samadhi, and whether there is a state like that or not. But the most important part of this book, in the part 2, after most of the topics, there is a sadhana which is given to it, and that sadhana, if performed, can literally transform your life. I read a review of this book. It said something like that: this book is Patanjali's Yoga Sutra offered in a very simple language. That is what potential this book has. Not all of these sadhanas have to be done in a different time, different area, and a specific commitment towards that. But you can perform it anywhere, anytime. And most of the things which are told in this are the things which you normally do in your day-to-day lives, but it tells you to do it in a different way. And what that different way is, I cannot tell that, because this is really a very subjective matter. After reading this book, I was damn sure that I want to do the inner engineering completion. I want to have the Shambhavi Mahamudra, which is the final step towards the inner engineering initiation, and I registered for it just after reading this book. So this book has literally transformed my life. If this book was not there, I wouldn't be making this video and even thinking of spirituality or anything. And I really recommend to everybody who is a seeker, who is a believer, who thinks there is something to spirituality or the Indian culture, or somebody thinks there's nothing to it. It is for every kind of person. You can just read it, perceive it in your own way. This is like an experiment. You need to perform it to know the results. I cannot tell you what the results can be, because this is a very subjective matter, as I told you before. So I really recommend this book to you, and I wish that my video pushed you a little bit towards reading this book and towards Sadhguru. So I really wish from the deepest of my heart that the way this book transformed me, you may allow this book to enter your life and to make you touch dimensions which are not in our experience yet. So I hope to see you in the next video. The next video will be about the inner engineering program, the live 4-day program which I attended in Ottawa, Canada. If you want to convince any of your friends to read this book, please send them this video. I'll see you in the next video. Namaskaram.